Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Afribution. I remain your favorite host, Chukwuedo. And of course, if you are a new subscriber, if you're a new viewer, thank you so much for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber, you know you guys are the MVP. And of course, if this is your first time, please consider liking, subscribing to the channel because, of course, this gives us more traction and it helps YouTube recommend our channel to other people. So yes, I'm just going to go straight into the topic. So today I'll be talking about some very important things you need to know as Africans in diaspora before investing in Africa. As you all know, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I am up for everything Africa. However, it's very, very important that before we make any move to invest our hard-earned money, especially as diasporans, we work really hard, 9 to 5, every day you're grinding, in the rain, in the sun, in the winter, sometimes it gets very cold. So it's going to be, a very, very life-shattering experience to actually lose your investment. So today's topic is going to be, some things that you need to know before you eventually make that investment decision in Africa. So without wasting much of your time, the first and most important thing you need to know as a diasporan who's considering to invest back in Africa, I'm actually going to say this from personal experience as well as experiences of other people. I mean, like friends, people that I'm quite close to, and then of course experiences of friends of friends. So I think the first thing, and this is like the absolute most important thing you need to know, is this: are you going to be present or you're going to be absent? So in sum, this investment, are you going to be on ground to actually run it? Or do you want to do an investment remotely where you're going to be absent and you hope that the investment is actually going to be run remotely? I think this is like the singular most important question you need to ask yourselves as Africans in diaspora, especially when you know that you're about to make that big move. Now, once you answer that question, then I think it is easy to actually now streamline your decision to the kind of investments that you're going to make. Now let's just look at the two scenarios. So the first thing is, if you know that you are going to be present, then of course, by every means, it makes it easier. You can be there to actually monitor your investment. And frankly speaking, the choices for you are quite limitless because you're on ground. You are basically following the whole steps, just in case, for example, you want to do, maybe investments like real estate, you want to open a store, like a supermarket, like a barber shop, like a farm, like a hotel, things like this. You want to go into transportation business, etc., etc. You are there to follow the process every step of the way. So if you are the person who knows that the investment you're about to make, you're going to be present, like you're going to be on ground in Africa. It doesn't matter where it is, whether it's in Nigeria, it's in South Africa, it's in Ghana, it's in Benin, it's in Togo, it's in Zambia, Rwanda, or wherever it is. It doesn't really matter. Once you know that you're going to be on ground, then of course it's way, way easier because you can see where your, $1, your $2 is actually going into, and you can basically monitor the whole process. So this video is not so much the focus for those who are going to be on ground, but it's important that you actually ask that question. Am I going to be on ground, to follow this investment, to monitor, the progress of the investment? If yes, that's 100% good, and this video is not so much going to focus on that. Now, if no, then the next point that I have is that you now have to ask yourself, okay, what kind of investment can I actually do when I am absent? Now, I'm going to give you my most important recommendation, especially for starters. I'm talking about those who are just about to make like their first move. I always advise that if you know you are going to be absent, and especially if you know you do not have reliable people on ground. Look, not everybody is lucky to have family members or friends who look out for them, as a matter of fact. So that's why as diasporans we need to do like a lot of fact finding before we eventually make those very, very big money moves, because hey, it's very hard to gather savings in the diaspora, whether you're in the US or in Canada, and then to eventually lose it, just in a twinkle of an eye. So the important thing to know that if you know that you're going to be absent, then I highly recommend real estate. And even the real estate, I'm actually talking about maybe land banking, something like that. I'm talking from personal experience, experience of friends, and experience of friends of friends as well. So, real estate, the reason I say real estate is that you do not necessarily need to be on ground, to look at the land and then know if it's going to appreciate or not. So it's like your most go-to investment option, just because you're not going to be on ground. Now, land banking basically entails you buying land in not so developed areas or developing areas. For example, for those who are Nigerians, you already know like the hottest locations right now are like Ibejuleki, not so cheap anymore. But if you're in Lagos, Nigeria, Ibejuleki, Ekpe at the moment is like the hottest spot. You still have some places in Ikorodu, and things like that. I'm going to have a different episode where I'll discuss a little bit in depth my personal experience with the whole real estate thing, especially considering my last visit to Nigeria, which was sometime in May. I spent about 1 month there. I asked a lot of questions, did a lot of research, and I'm going to do like a different episode where I'm going to dive deep. So basically, if you know you're going to be absent, one of your surest investment options would be land banking, especially once you know you have done your due diligence. What I mean by that is you need to research very thoroughly the real estate company you're about to deal with, especially if they claim that the document is maybe freehold or accession in progress or stuff like this. And also, even if they say, oh, for example, the land has like registered survey, it has C of O, governor's consent, gazette, etc., etc. I think I'll also make another episode explaining some of these titles. Again, I'm not a real estate agent. I'm just going to explain based on the limited knowledge that I have, but I'm quite knowledgeable about these documents and basically what they are and what they actually entail in terms of how much weight they have in terms of the real estate sector. So yes, so land banking, you need to do your research, and of course, when you confirm that after the land search, you say that the land is legitimate, it's free from any form of encumbrances, whether it's government acquisition or committed, or a landing dispute, something like that. Then of course you can now go ahead and make comparison in terms of the price, and also you need to consider the amount of development there and what are the plans of the government in a couple of years, because these things are going to determine how quick you're going to get your ROI. So that's the first thing. Now I'm going to give you very practical examples of people who have actually made some investment mistakes in Africa as diasporans and regretted their decision. So we can do the flip and say these are the investments that you should avoid. Number one is transportation business. Transportation business, I think it's a very enticing one, because from the outside it looks like it's very profitable. Oh, this is so nice, there's a lot of money in transportation. But when you go really deep, you realize that the modalities, like the complications of managing transportation business is not something that you can do remotely. What do I mean by that? My father, as a young boy, my father used to have two bikes. I'm talking about like motorbikes, like motorcycles. It was a very common practice in Nigeria. I'm talking about in the early 2000s, stroke late 2000s. For those who grew up in Nigeria, Lagos particularly, they understand a little bit, the kind of business I'm talking about. So he bought two motorbikes, and then of course he contracted two people and he gave them the bikes to run. And it was more like something we call a hire purchase. So a hire purchase is a situation where you give, you buy a vehicle, you buy a motorbike and stuff like that, then you give it to somebody with an agreed rate that they need to pay you daily based on how much they work. So let's imagine that you buy the bike for, let me just use dollars because I think it's easier for everybody to understand. You buy the bike for $500, and then you call somebody to say, hey, I want you to take the bike and, run around with it, do businesses, convey passengers from one place to another. And then on a daily basis, you're going to give me $1 until you pay, let's say, 1.5% of the value of the bike. What do I mean by that? You're going to refund the $500 with the $250 profit on it, then you can have the bike. You can keep the bike for yourself. So this was a very common practice in Lagos back then, because it helped the people who could not afford the bikes to actually earn a living, and of course with the possibility of owning the bikes after they made complete payments. So my father had two bikes that he gave to two guys who were basically running the bikes, and frankly speaking, it didn't take up to 3 months before we started hearing a whole lot of stories. Today, oh, I got caught by the police officers. I had an accident. I was a little bit sick. The motorbike became faulty. We had these stories constantly and constantly and constantly until my dad had to retrieve the bikes after a whole lot of chasing and looking for them around the city. But he was fortunate; he was able to recover the bikes, and then he sold the bikes at a loss. First example. Second example, I have an uncle who worked in a very good company, and then he was settled, like he was paid off, and then he bought a bus. He bought a bus. Now, he gave the bus to somebody to actually drive the bus. The same kind of arrangement. You drive the bus, you make some daily remittances, and then when you pay 1.5% of the value of the bus, you return the full value with an extra 50%, then you can keep the bus for yourself. The same situation within 6 months. A lot of stories. As a matter of fact, the guy drove the bus and he left that city. He went to another state entirely, and basically he was just doing as he pleased during that period. So he had to take a lot of investigations for my uncle to actually find him and retrieve the bus. I eventually sold it at a loss. Now, these two people that I just told you about, my dad and my uncle, remember, they were even on the ground. So this is what actually makes it even worse. Like, they were not even running this business like from the diaspora. They were on the ground, like they were in the same city. Yet these things happened. Now imagine you, who is about to take your hard-earned forex to go to Africa, buy the buses, buy whatever the vehicles, and then give it to somebody with the hope that they are going to pay, and then you come back to the diaspora to live. Remember, I'm talking about those who are thinking to invest while living in the diaspora. Transportation business is a no-no. Number two, the other business I wanted to talk about is the hotel business. The same thing. From an outside perspective, it seems like, oh, this is a very lucrative business. I'm not saying it's not lucrative, but if you know you're not going to be on ground to actually, follow through that investment, do the day-to-day monitoring, make sure that, there is efficient bookkeeping, then I don't think the hotel business is a good one for you. Now, this is an experience of a friend of a friend. So what happened? So the guy comes back, he builds a massive hotel, and in order for him to somehow put some level of monitoring, he installs CCTV cameras in the hotel. And then, of course, he was able to access the activities of the hotel remotely. How nice, how sophisticated he thought the technology was. But what he didn't know is that the guys on ground had too much local knowledge. So these guys knew how to circumvent the system. So what happened? The hotel was running the first 6 months. Everybody was remitting. Things were going fine. And then, of course, the grid set in. So what happened? So these guys in the hotel, in connivance with the manager, he had somebody who was, he had the manager who was running the hotel. So he was sending supplies, like beer, wines, different kind of drinks to the hotel. So he believed that, hey, the supplying company was giving him like all the receipts, all the documents, so he knew the quantity of stock that he had and how much he was expecting. But what he didn't know was that this guy had mastered the trick of circumventing the whole system. So what happened? So the manager, whenever they had very busy nights, like Friday nights, Saturday nights, typically over the weekend, and then there's something they call ladies' night. If you're Nigerian who, if you night crawl, you know what I'm talking about. So what happened? These guys, whenever they have that very huge, customer, base of people, especially on those Friday and Saturday nights, what happened? These guys would go outside of the hotel and purchase, supplies. Remember, they already have supplies in the hotel. So they go, they purchase supplies from outside, crates of beer, Star, Gouda, and the others. And then they get some wine because they already know what these customers enjoy. They already know what the customers like. So what happens? They bring in their own supplies of the drinks, they sell it to the customers, they keep the money, and then what happens? The supply that was bought by the owner originally remains. So it was week after week after week. The guy noticed that sales were going down, not necessarily because people were not coming to the hotel, and then of course buying drinks or making patronage, but it was because in connivance with the manager, they were bringing drinks from outside, and then they were selling to the customers, and then his stock remained. So in his mind, hey, these guys are not cheating me because the stock is there, it's just that we're not making sales. Meanwhile, the guys on ground were making a truckload of money because they know that this guy is running the hotel, remotely. He's not in the country, and of course, he cannot really know what could possibly be going wrong. And of course, he had to come down and without informing the manager, and then went in as somebody who just disguised himself and his friends. They went in there and somehow they discovered the trick, and then of course it was a huge shock, and he lost a lot of funds, obviously. And of course, it was a very, very bitter experience for him, So the hotel business is like the hotel, bar, lounge. These are not businesses that I think people in the diaspora can actually do remotely, Then the third business that I will talk about is anything that involves buying and selling. Similar to the hotel business. Oh, I want to come back. I want to do like a supermarket and stuff like that. And then you go back to the diaspora. This is not smart. Most people have regretted their actions, their investments, because they also believe that, hey, I have everything, stocked, but it's buying and selling, very, very prone to manipulation, especially from somebody who's got that experience to actually, maneuver the system, So you want to open a store, you want to open a shop and things like that. If you're not the guy who's going to be there doing the day-to-day sales and of course taking stock, balancing the accounts, this is not a smart investment to actually make for as a diaspora. Then the last one I wanted to talk about is a very controversial one, which is exportation. What do I mean by that? A lot of people who grew up in Nigeria, I'm just going to be using Nigeria as a specific case. What they do is that people who live, for example, in Europe and in the US, they buy different kind of domestic appliances like blenders, microwaves, etc., etc. This household stuffs, and then they buy like a minivan, either a minivan or something we call the space bus. It could be a Toyota Sienna, it could be an Honda Odyssey, it could be a Chrysler. This kind of space buses, and then what happens? They stuff these domestic appliances, which they get very cheap. Sometimes they even see it in the bins, in some of these European countries and in the US or Canada. And then what happens? They ship it all the way to Africa, and then they count on family members or very good friends to actually help them sell these items and remit the money. Most of the times, it always goes wrong. Why? Because there will be excuses. Oh, people actually bought this very, very low. Now you already shipped that car and you already shipped all the items. Most of the times, what people do is that they only basically get the money for the car or for the space bus that is sent, and sometimes it's actually barely enough. Now, the remaining items, what happens is that these people connive, and then they tell you, oh, look, we were only able to realize, let's say, $300. Now, let's imagine the value of those appliances that you sent was like, let's say, $500. They'll tell you, they'll say, hey, as it stands, you are overpricing it. There's no way we can sell for that price. But guess what? These people are going to sell with maybe 3x or 4x profit margins, but they are always going to look for a way to undercut you. Why? You're not on ground, and they'll tell you, hey, bro, if you don't want to sell, then you might as well, keep your stuffs. And of course, remember, the sweetness in that business is that you need to, sell as soon as possible, because you need this money to actually, buy another set of products, something like that. Now remember, the buying cost, the purchasing cost, also you need to factor in the shipping cost to Nigeria, and then three, you need to also factor in the clearing cost. For anybody who is into clearing and forwarding, they understand that Nigeria now is very, 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 very difficult. What do I mean by that? Um, the ridiculous amounts that the custom officers actually charge to clear goods or containers is really, really crazy. It's super expensive to the extent that the possibility of you making any profits becomes very, very slim. So many people that I know personally who have ventured into this particular business of exporting domestic appliances, blenders, microwaves, things like this, toasters, toasting machines, and things like this, it always goes south because once you are not on ground to actually clear it and then take it to the market and then sell these things, because you know how much you bought them, then it's easier for you to fix a profitable price for you to sell and then recoup some of your money. So yes, these are the businesses that I think you should not consider doing, especially if you are going to be doing this in absentia. What do I mean? You're not going to be on ground to actually run the businesses. Now, as I told you, if you're going to be on ground, obviously you can venture into any business because you're there. Even if things begin to crumble, at least you know that, hey, everything happened right in my front. But as I said, land banking can be one of those very, very good ways for you to invest, especially if you're not going to be on ground. And so, as I mentioned, I'm going to do another episode where I can, discuss some other kind of businesses, especially for those who are going to be on ground. But I just thought it necessary because I don't know, maybe at this exact moment, some people are already thinking, oh, I want to be the hotel, and then I'm going to come back to the diaspora to stay and run the business. I'm going to put CCTV. Hey, you might need to reconsider that, that plan. And then two, for those who are thinking, hey, I'm going to do transportation business. If you're not going to drive that bus yourself, you may as well reconsider, that particular investment. Then three, of course, buying and selling, opening a store, and then traveling back to the diaspora. I don't really think it's a good idea. And then finally, the exportation business, because there is just too much cost, and especially at the clearing and the shipping phase of the business, it could actually cost you a lot of money, only for you to be, cheated. Eventually, when these goods get to Africa, and then you tell people to actually sell these goods for you, whether it's family, whether it's friends, So hey, I don't know what your experiences are. I would like to know in the comment section below. Please let us know, have you tried any of these businesses? Did it work out for you? It would be nice to actually get your experience or your perspective. Maybe perhaps, some of the viewers here can actually learn from your experience and know how to basically, navigate, through these businesses and then do it, from the diaspora. But the experiences that I know from friends and friends of friends, it actually didn't go well. It has not been positive. So hey, please consider liking and subscribing to this channel if you like what we do, and if you are getting any value from this channel, we'll greatly appreciate it, so that YouTube can recommend the channel to new viewers and other people. So that's me done. Yes, so I'll see you on the very next one. Thank you.